you know what? We found that if Latinos got credit and funding in this at the same rate as whites, the GDP of the United States would grow 1.5 trillion. So you got what we've become good at. It's putting numbers on what people are missing by not doing business with us and not having us in all the tables that represent something in this country.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jimen Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. I am super excited, and you're all in for a big treat. And I gotta say, the first time I heard about Miss Ana Valdez, the president and CEO of the Latino Donor Collaborative, was in 2015-16, when I was working on doing some research about the impact of Hispanics on the economy. And boom, I bumped into the Latino Donor Collaborative. And welcome, Ana. I am like beyond
Oh my
excited to have you on our show.
Sammy, I am so excited. I'm so honored. What you do is amazing. Your podcast is amazing. I'm just really excited. And thanks for the opportunity to share this data because, as you and I have talked about, this data is good for every American. And so I'm excited. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And it's good business, right? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about your trajectory, how you landed where you are,
Yeah,
why taking on the reins of unveiling, right? The impact of Latinos in every aspect of the US's economy. And we're going to go through that in terms of all of the reports, because you started in point A and now you do B, C, D, E, all the way to Z, right? And then some. And so how? What's your why? How? Tell me about it. I want to know all of the yummy details of your trajectory and how you became, right, this voice of Latino data.
absolutely. Well, it probably started when it started, I'm sure, long ago, but when I came to the United States actually kind of late. I came here after having done my master's in Spain. And so I was born and raised in Mexico City. Let's start there. And so I'm Mexican and I'm American now also, but I was raised in Mexico. In Mexico, everybody's a Mexican, right? So there's no difference. And I moved here to the United States and I realized that this kind of being Latino is incredibly cool, but at the same time it's not very defined to start with, and also it's not very present sometimes, and some information is missing because there are these misconceptions of who we are, right? So long story short, in 2010, this amazing group of leaders, basically coordinated by Sol Trujillo, our chairman, and by Henry Cisneros, our co-founder, and they decided to say, you know what, we need to present data that shows really who Latinos are in this country, because we do know that instinctively Latinos are incredible, but we really don't have the means to show that, because we know, I know that as individuals we're doing really well, right? Especially immigrants, and of course everybody, but in my case I'm talking about the immigration kind of wave. We came here, we did well, we make this a country better, we actually integrate, we have friends from all kinds of backgrounds, etc., and the country is really better because of us, and you see it everywhere in the culture. And we know that that our economic impact is tremendous, but we didn't have the numbers,
Mhm.
Sammy, and we really wanted to do it. So I'm not going to take the credit of founding this group. This group was founded by Sol Trujillo and by Henry Cisneros. I was lucky enough to consult for a little bit of the formation of it. I was part of the getting the funds to actually start the organization. And then I finished, I left. I really thank them to allow me to be a consultant for it, and I left. That was in 2010. And by the way, it was formed, triggered by, you will remember, in 2010, all these laws in the border states started emerging
Yes.
where
Mm-hmm.
racial profiling was being legitimized, right? And I don't
Yes.
know if you remember, but really, you couldn't do that to any other group in this country except to Latinos. And
Mm-hmm.
so two leaders say, what are we doing wrong? What is it that, that people think that they can racial profile us so easily when they could never do it to anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
So that the organization started, the Latino Donor Collaborative. Okay, fast forward 5 years later, our chairman and some of the board members call me and say, "Hey, we've done a lot of progress. It's a great organization, and we really want a new CEO to start, a new lead to start." I actually started as an executive director, but we need a new leader to kind of take it to the next step. And that's when I joined as a full time person and the leader of the organization. It's been almost 8 years, and it's been really a joy. We are incredibly lucky to have this board of directors of Latino leaders that are completely selfless. They don't get
Mm-hmm.
anything out of it, they only give and give and give and give. But their purpose and their mission is to create an image of who Latinos are in this country that is fact based. It's not
Right.
based on the horrible performance of the narcos shows and the gang members shows and all these misconceptions. What we do is actually create a brand of Latino that shows the real impact of who we are:
Yes. Yes.
law abiding, the hardworking, the family oriented, the grateful every step of the way, the motivation of give a better life to our kids, the education focus, all that we gather and we build reports that show it unequivocally, so that people like you and everybody in this country can have an idea of who this 20% of the American
Mhm.
population is. When you have a population that is one out of every five, you better get to know it well. Because if
Right.
not,
And growing, right?
it's and growing,
And
Sammy, of
growing.
course.
Yes. Yes. And talking about the reports, I mean, come on. It's over 25 reports. You do them every, couple of years. You're constantly um updating the data, making sure that you keep your fingers on the pulse of what's going on from an economic and cultural standpoint. And what I love is this concept of figuring out a Hispanic GDP. I mean, if I could be a fly on the wall during those initial conversations, how did you come up with that? And also, what was that process of research, right? And coming down to what are the indicators or the factors that are included in this report that afford you the certainty, right? That today, I think the last report came out in the fall, right? In
Exactly. September.
2022. And it stated that if Latinos were all clustered together and created a separate country, we would be the fifth largest GDP in the world.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So it's a really great question, and I get so excited about talking, of about this because it was so. Everything started in 2015, very, very at the beginning of the year, that our board said, I think we're doing a really good job, but we really want you to come up with, something that shows, again, as I said before, unequivocally who we are.
Mhm.
So, of course, the genius of our board chair, this fearless leader that absolutely knows no boundaries in the good way of the word, he said, you know what? If the United States creates a United States GDP, why don't we actually extract from the general GDP the Latino GDP? And of course, people looked at us like crazy. I actually looked at my boss, the chairman, like, you're crazy. I mean, literally, we were like, what's going on with you? And he started thinking and thinking and thinking. And I always tell him, I think you were a mathematician in another life, because he has this incredible brain. And so we start kind of talking to different researchers, and they say, some of them say this can be done, some of them say this can be done. And we finally commissioned the first report, and it comes out. We of course find the funds, and we help designing it. We in a
Mhm.
lot of ways. And I say we, the truth is it was our chairman, but I was lucky enough to be on each one of those meetings. And we start kind of weighing on how to do it, and what results we want to really extract from what we're getting. And we go back and forth, in meetings, in person, and emails, and everything. Finally, we get to exactly the product that we wanted to get. And the first report comes out in 2017, and we are thrilled, because we find out, Sammy, and at that point nobody knew, that at that point we were the eighth largest economy in the world.
Wow.
Imagine that, when you don't know anything about your own community, when just 5 years before they were racial profiling our people on the border, and you come up to entities like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and you tell them, guess what? Look what we found. And they
Mhm.
they are like, honestly, shocked. Some of them don't believe us. We have to go back to Stanford or UCLA or different people that have this data. And and we finally convinced them. I don't know if you remember, but the first report, which was in 2017, we actually created this huge campaign with Young and Rubicam of
Mhm.
ads in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Hill, that said, if you want to grow, you need to know where the growth is coming from, and then all our numbers, right? And of course, it was a big fundraising effort, because those ads are extremely expensive, and of course, the design had to be perfect. But they were very, very successful, and we are thrilled. And we decide to do this every year, because we knew that this Latino GDP was growing. Well, unfortunately, by the second year, that would have been the 2018, year, our main economist dies.
Oh, no.
Are honestly devastated, because of course we feel awful. It was a pretty mature, young man, let's say, but he was almost 80, and unfortunately he got sick and he passes away. So the 2018 report never happened.
Mm.
We finally, somebody recommends another economist, from Cal Lutheran, and we of course start working with him. The methodology was done, so it was easy for him. But and of course, we work with him in order to get exactly the report that we want. And what would be our surprise that, and I'm going to go exactly to what you said before, back, past, fast forward. The first report was 2017. The second report was 2019, and then 2021 and 22. We go in 5 years from being the eighth largest economy to, through the pandemic, becoming the fifth largest economy in the world. Sam,
That's insane.
Sammy, imagine that only the whole United States as a country, China, Germany, and Japan would be bigger than the Latino GDP in America.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. It is crazy. And you know what? It's funny, but it's not surprising that you had to, at the beginning, circle back, and you've continued these relationships, right? Like these
Absolutely.
with think tank leaders like Stanford, UCLA, Columbia University, all of these big, non-Latino, right, entities, or not non-Latino led entities, or yet anyway,
Yeah,
um to be
exactly.
able to say, no soy yo, no soy yo solamente. It's not just me saying this. Look, we've got some like big, heavy hitting, legitimate, in your eyes, partners, right? But it's awesome because then that just added to the legitimacy also of the work, of the important work that you were all doing, and the freaking like cutting edge, because it's, again, it's like genius, right?
Exactly.
Genius.
You know
Yeah.
what? It was definitely genius. And again, all the credit to my chair. An honor to work with him to promote it, to make it a big part of the. You know what? The great thing is, Sammy, that through the 5 years, we and the five reports, we've managed to make of this data an everyday tool for places like the Federal Reserve and the Joint Economic Council in the Congress, and most of the CEOs of big consumer product companies, banks, the news, right? We've been in every news, outlet that you can ever imagine. We're lucky to release this report live on MSNBC and CNBC, of course, with the chief CEO of the Wall Street Journal. It's just, we've really not only produce the commission this report and make sure that it's paid, etc., but we also have made sure that it doesn't stay in the drawer, because
Oh,
that's unfortunately
absolutely.
what happens, right?
You're so
So we're
generous with the information, so generous, and for small businesses too. I'm telling you, I've been using, I'm always now kept my eye on you guys. And not only that, then all of the extensions, right, to this research now, because then from the moment you anchored your know-how, and you created this blueprint and started convening big players to play in the sandbox, right? Then you've also explored Latinos in tech, Latino led content, Latino representation in media,
yeah,
the state of Latino entrepreneurship, all of these
Latino access to
other.
capital. Latino access
Yes.
to capital, because you know what? We found that if Latinos got credit and funding in this at the same rate as whites, the GDP of the United States would grow 1.5 trillion. So you got what we've become good at. It's putting numbers on what people are missing by not doing business with us and not having us in all the tables that represent something in this country. So that's what we want to do, right? Like, look at the money you're leaving on the table because you're not having us. And that's, we want the shareholders to know. We want every decision maker, resource allocator, people that are creating policy in Washington, everybody. So it's honestly, yeah, you're right. It's a joy. And we try to make our reports a benchmark, Sammy, so
Mhm.
that the same companies, the same people can actually measure themselves. The bosses can measure the staff. It's a way of measuring. We're not in the business of shaming people. We're in the
Mhm.
business of tools so that they actually can grow, because if they grow by including us, we all grow.
Absolutely. And you provide those key performance indicators and the methodology, right? To be able to integrate and to really add Latinos as part of your strategic plan for growth. Because without the Latino population and tapping into this GDP, then at some point you're going to reach a plateau, and it's just a matter of time. This is a I feel like it's a negative option proposition, right, for most companies. At this point, you have to. It's a must.
We call it lovingly. When the CEOs come to our convenings, we actually kind of challenge them and we say, okay, we're going to have the IQ test for CEOs. And so we go back to the numbers and everything. And so in a very, very funny way, we actually really want to be friendly with them, because we want to change things by teaching them tools, by
Right.
explaining what's in it for them, by creating the growth that they want to see for themselves and for others. And so we literally call it the IQ test. Do you know enough about Latinos or not? Because imagine that somebody tells you, there's a new cave that nobody has been discovered that has 20% more of every growth that you ever envisioned. Who doesn't want to know about it, right? And the
Yeah.
thing is also, Sammy, if they don't do it, their competitors will. So you better start doing it today.
Absolutely. Oye, Ana, so what is the reaction when you do these fun exercises, and expose the information? What has been like the most, and you don't have to name the people, but the most crazy reaction that you've received?
So I'm going to tell you one good reaction, and I can tell you the name because he's a lovely guy and he's a very friendly guy with everything that we do. And then I'll tell you a negative one. Um, so the first one is Steve Forbes. Forbes magazine, the Forbes Empire, everything, right? So one day he actually he started publishing a lot about our reports and different writers writing about our GDP report and access to capital report and the media report. And so we called him and we said, you should come and see, our next release and we want you to talk. So he gets in, he flies into LA just for this and he's so excited and he's so engaged. Long story short, after the whole day, he actually is interviewed and kind of like in a fireside chat, with our chairman. And he ends up, and I have the recording. And of course, he always laughs when he sees it because it's everywhere. Where he says, "Well, the summary is, I think Latinos are just the cavalry coming to the rescue of the United States. Without
Oh,
you
wow.
guys, nothing." And then he closes with, President Trump is a very good friend of mine, but this is something we'll never agree on. And I've told him to his face, you are missing the boat by not including Latinos in everything you do. And everybody, what can I tell you? The whole room was like, yay, clapping, standing up, standing ovation. And we have it recorded. And of course, we ask, what do you think? And it's like, use it as much as you want. I've told this to Trump 1,000 times. So we have it on our website. It's funny. So that's like one of the best, reactions that we've gotten. And the negative reaction was, I'm not going to say the company, but this amazing company, we have been trying to get to them and we couldn't. We were trying to get to them through the CMO, and the CMO would be completely, unavailable. We tried in as many times as we could, and with even people on the board that we knew try to contact him and get him interested, and he wouldn't. Long story short, one day, one of our board members is sitting on a plane with the CEO of the company, which is strange because the CEOs have their own plane, but for whatever reason, this guy was on the plane, and he starts telling him about it. Well, not only did he made the CMO come to our next meeting, but he actually became the most important fireside chat of the next convening. He, as the CEO, was there. He also said things like, 80, I think 70% of our growth comes from Latinos. Da, 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 da. And the CMO was so quiet on the back of the room, and till today, he is completely negative about it. He is not helpful, but we have the CEO on board, so no problem. But
Right, right.
there are people that just don't want to hear it. And the good news is it's the minority of the people. Like it's really almost nobody. We've never had such a negative reaction, but there are people like that that
Yes.
don't believe it, or I don't want to believe it, or this country's white, or any other reason why they would have to not to take a look at these numbers and actually use them.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that, and I don't know, I'd like your opinion on this. I feel that it's just based on fear. We work in the equity space too and everything, and we're also very mindful and try to demonstrate grace when we walk into these spaces, because I just feel that there's an underlying fear
Yeah.
that the oppressed are going to become the oppressor, and
Yes,
that's my sense. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think that there's an ignorant point of view that thinks that opening up the pie won't grow it, but it'll reduce their slice. To be honest with you, that's why we chose to not go with the social justice argument.
Mm.
We believe that it's a great argument, but sometimes, people are really scared. We believe that the reason why the LDC has been able to get to the places where we have been able to get is that we actually come to them with a business premise of growth. So for us, it's not, we're charity, you owe us, we deserve it. No, for us is, let me tell you where you can get growth and where you actually have a blind spot. And who doesn't want to know a blind spot of getting more money? And so sometimes we really are impatient with people that don't get it because we're bringing them an opportunity. We're not talking about, charity. Again, as I said, we're not philanthropy. We are not actually fundraising. As you know, Sammy, we fund our own reports, and we have partners also to fund our own reports, and we distribute them for free.
I
They're
love
downloadable.
that.
So we don't really make any profit of it. It's just a tool that we provide for free. And we're a little impatient when people don't want to hear about it. And to your very original question, I would say 95% of the times when we approach a CEO, they are completely open to it. And one of the
Mhm.
things also that help is that most of our board members have been there. Most of them have been CEOs of big companies. So when a colleague comes to you and say, I have, a kind of blind spot that I can help you to clear, where you can earn a lot of money, it's a different conversation than when you have probably, people boycotting outside your room, your office, or people calling you on media and shaming you. And so
Right.
that's one of the many reasons, and as you can see, reasons keep emerging in our conversation because we love the way we do things because we believe that they're really creating a change.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it also demonstrates some of the qualities and attributes that are inherent to our collective culture, about familismo,
Mm.
building trust,
Yeah,
sharing moments together, proximity, bringing people in, right, to the party, right, and in this case it's the business sense party, right, and all of those things that I think once non-Latinos are exposed to and experience, even in a business dynamic, our way of behaving, conducting ourselves, and engaging, because it's a lot more, I feel, more personal and
totally.
chill, more relaxed too, less transactional, right?
Exactly. You totally hit you
Less
right.
transactional. I think that they appreciate it and they say, "Hey, I'm kind of digging this. Let's
Yeah,
go." Right? And do you feel that there's a shift happening?
100%. I think that, we how do we call it? So we say, oh, that's one of our transformed leaders. When people just start calling and, is your new report out? I want to, talk about it in my next conference, whatever. People that are just now kind of in a lot of different ways depending on our data, and we're really, really excited about it. But Sammy, you also touched on a very important point, and another one of the reasons why we do things the way we do, which is it goes with our own cultural values. And let me tell you why. We are not used to go out on the streets and protest. We're not used to be boycotting. And I'm not saying it's not good. Maybe we should learn. But so far today, we are not used to it. We are taught to show results with our work. We are taught that our fruits will reveal who we are. In a way, it's good and it's bad, but it is what it is, right? And so, if we're not going to protest, if we're not going to march, if we're not going to have a leader that goes to a company and you know demands a change, what we can do is show off who we are as a community overall. And as I said at the beginning, these numbers show that we are, and I don't, and I'll go back to this, that we are incredibly hardworking, that we are reliable, that we're incredibly loyal. Even with marketing, right? With brands, with bosses, with companies, we're just incredibly loyal. We just want to create a better life for our families. What is more American? What is more of an American dream than us? It's incredible. I mean, that's what we want to show people. We are not the enemy. We are not invading anything. We've been in this country even before this country was a country. And we come in all shapes and in all forms. We integrate in a lot of different ways. Sometimes you may not know when a Latino is your dentist, or a Latino is your, travel agent, or a Latino is your lawyer, because we completely, in a lot of different ways, integrate in this country, although we keep our traditions close to our hearts generation after generation. This is
Yes.
what I want to do, to convey this with numbers.
That's fantastic. And we can resolve the debt ceiling. That's been the topic lately. If we're only given access, right, to better procurement opportunities, to,
Yes.
equal representation or fair representation, right, in
Yeah.
leadership roles, to access to technology, to resources, and
Yeah.
to, yeah, and to equal pay and all of those things, right, that kind
Exactly.
of hinder our social mobility. Imagine we're impacting and we're contributing a lot, and to your point, it's not anywhere close to what it could be if we were given the proper chance.
We're using now this term proportionate representation, because
I
if
like
we're
that.
20%, yes, if we're 20% of the population, we deserve 20% of what we give. If we are, for example, audiences in Hollywood, we're between 25 and 29% of all the tickets being bought on theaters. We deserve 29% of the stories and 29% of the characters. If we are 25% of all the Pampers being sold by Procter and Gamble and Colgate and all these companies, we deserve 25% of the advertising, because my dollars are really good for these companies, but I'm not sure my beautiful Latino face has been represented in those ads enough. And so we constantly talk about not fair representation, because then it seems like all minorities should get a candy. No, it's proportionate and segmented representation for what we want and where we want to be represented.
I took note. Vite, yo aprendo algo. I learned
Me
something
encanta, bravo, bravo. The more
every
people
day. I
use it,
just
the
learned
better.
something new. I love that terminology because it's fair, right? Again, going back to fair, it really does represent what
Yeah.
we're asking for, right? And so then, and I think that would help us also feel more confident, because I feel like confidence is in the workplace and in public spaces and in participating in boards. And I know from, from my earlier self, that it takes a minute to build certain skills. And so I just feel that it would, having that representation more visible, would
Exactly.
also help us say, okay, STEM jobs are for me, and then I can do this because she or he or they are doing it too, and so.
One of the things that I love the most, I am lucky to be invited to speak in front of mostly consumer product companies and banks, which I love. And of course, in other places, I love too. But those two places, I feel I can make a lot of impact. And, I remember one of the things that I love the most is when I get the feedback on the chats, or when I'm in person and I get people, coming to talk with me, when they say, all your numbers, I took photos and I'm sharing them with my kids.
Hmm.
Incredibly important, because when you talk to them, they say, I'm very proud of being who I am. My kids, I know, instinctively are too, but we don't have the data. We don't see the lawyers on the shows. We don't see the people like you and me, Sammy, the people that you and I know in shows being mainstream characters. And so when you see these numbers, you just create this pride. And again, we are not short of pride, but it's just great to create the validation, to know the numbers, the exact data that shows that you really are everything you are, and more in so many ways. And so again, when I love the most is when they tell me they took photos and they shared with their families, their grandparents. This has to be known by everybody.
Yes, absolutely. And just so you know, I get asked to speak at different events here locally in Central Florida. And I want to tell you that the most recent two events were first with the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce of Central Florida, and I talked about the Latino Donor Collaborative. You had to see their faces.
I
They were
love
like, "Wait, what?" Right? and and also with HOPWISE, the Hispanic American Professional and Business Women Association here in Central
that.
Florida, and the same reaction. And so
Love.
then I show these numbers, especially with the business community, Latino owned business owners, because I tell them, you like me have the freedom to speak up, to elevate others. You have, the business acumen, the liberty, you're independent, right? You're a business owner, to be able to participate in committees, to sit on boards, to show up at town hall meetings, right? And if you need to be armed with this information, so
Exactly.
that way every chance you get, you
Yes.
can insert this and share it with as many people as possible, not only in our circles, right? Not only within the Latino community, so they understand so we know where we stand and
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
we're going, but also with not the non-Latino business community, so they understand what they're missing out on. And
Exactly.
so every chance I get, I include, the slide. So just so you know that.
Sammy, I love that because everybody has to know this. Everybody. And, I also love the way, not only that you are, the way you're sharing it, but also the way you're encouraging them to have a voice. Because that's one thing, that was the theme of 2022 for us, is
Mm,
create a voice. And a voice means what you're doing, right? With your voice, when you speak in front of these groups, you tell them what to say, you tell them to do it, you encourage them to speak out. So that's one and probably the most important voice that we can have. But we also have voice when we write a letter to a studio complaining that, there's a futuristic story happening in Los Angeles and suddenly there's not a single Latino story. Did we all die,
right.
or what happened, right? Or when, you see an advertising of Toyota, well, this is not true because they're actually are very, very diverse in their advertising. But if you see an advertising of a company that you are a very good client or of, and you never see a face like yours or a name like yours, you need to write letters. You need to vote, because voting is one of the most important parts of our voice. We cannot complain about the government if you're not voting, if you have a chance, because I know that a lot of people without papers that cannot. But if you have
Mm-hmm.
a chance to vote, you need to vote, whatever your vote is for. But it needs to be heard. And
Yes.
another part that we have, especially us women, that we are so powerful with, is the power of your purse. If you see that there's a movie, and I've really done now very often this with my family, if we see a movie that is either representing us negatively or not even representing us at all, don't buy a ticket for that movie, don't watch
Yeah.
it. you know
Mm-hmm.
See a brand that is just making fun of of Latinos, or making fun of a character that is dear to your culture or whatever, don't buy that product. If you see a
Mm-hmm.
bank that is not being fair to our community, don't support the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Use the power of your purse. We women decide more than 70% of the buying that happens in a Latino household. So use the power of your purse. Show your happiness or your unhappiness with the support that you give to this company with your dollars. So voices are everywhere. They come in all shapes and forms. Use it. Use it. Calladita no te ves más bonita.
No.
So please use your voice.
That's great. So, what's next? What's next for the Latino Donor Collaborative? Are you okay with sharing top secrets? You know what you have lined up.
I am. Well, first of all, we'll continue to do all the reports that we do because, for us, they have become, as I said at the beginning, benchmarks to measure companies, to measure, areas of the industry and all that. So we're really excited. But this year, we're adding some others which are amazing, and I can speak about two of them because because we're very public about it and we're very happy. Two reports that we're doing. The first one is with the Society of Latino Engineers in America.
Mm,
And we,
mm,
as you know, Sammy, engineering has become the most important, for better or for worse, the most important profession in this country. There's a huge shortage. We're importing a lot of engineers from Mexico, from India, from China, because there are not enough engineers here. And so the Society of Latino Engineers in the United States has this incredible data that we're actually empowering together. And we're going to create this incredible report that will be released in September, where you'll see that we really are saving the day. We really are coming to this country as the cavalry that is helping the United States to continue growing, right? And you'll see it, it's amazing. And you'll see the kind of engineers, the kind of challenges, how can we create and encourage more Latinos to actually go that road. It's really really exciting to actually participate in the shaping of it. And then the second one is with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, and we're
mm,
not sure the way and the amount of representation that we're having in national news. That's not going to be good news because there are very few hosts of shows, there are very few articles, there are very few Latino editors in newspapers, and we are not expecting good news, but we're expecting to provide a benchmark to actually provide information by company and by channel so
mm,
that people in those areas start putting their batteries on, like we say in Spanish, and change, because we're going to do it every year and we're going to be very public about it. So
yeah.
we found that one of the most important areas to shape a brand about a community is the news
Mm,
media. And we're going to start measuring it so that we see the kind of stories, the kind of guests, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the very few times you see a Latino guest in one of those talks, in one of those news shows, they talk either about immigration or about poverty. There are Latino energy experts, Latino financial experts, Latinos of all kinds, and they just don't think about it, right? And
mhm.
and not present. So we're going to start measuring that. And so those two, besides, we have another one that I'm not ready to to reveal yet, but those two reports are going to be so exciting. They're just the beginning. We're going to do them every year. We're working with the MacArthur Foundation for the news media report, and
Mhm.
the dream team. We're excited.
That is wonderful. Well, I'm delighted. When you have new reports, the new reports in September, it would be fantastic to have you come back and
Please.
unveil all of the new data and really inform us and educate us on these new benchmarks, so that way we're aware, and then we could be pendiente, right? We could be on the lookout for change and write those letters and maybe have some takeaways as to how we as a community can convene and mobilize um to raise our voices together.
That's exactly, Sammy, what we want from the Latino community. For example, with the media report, people say, "Well, I don't work at a studio. I don't know what to do." Well, just be aware. I remember the first report. This is the fifth report that we do. We started in 2016 also, and I remember with the first report, people were like, "Oh my god." I knew I was not being well represented, but I thought maybe it was that I don't turn on the TV at the right time, or maybe I'm not following it closely, or maybe it's my imagination. But no, there's only 3% of Latino roles in in the entertainment business. So then just knowing it, you
Mhm.
being more demanding. You're more, exactly as you're saying, motivated to write a letter, motivated to use your purse in order to show that you're happy or unhappy with different representations. So yes, this is not only informational, it's really an activating tool. Every data, every piece of data that we release is an activating tool.
Absolutely. And it really arms you with information to not only share from a national standpoint, because you do it at a national level, but also it gives you an idea of what to probe for or to ask at the local level too, right? Because then, like, I was for the past couple of years, and I came out of this committee just this past summer, but I was on the local county's arts and culture council, and they disperse funding to arts and culture groups here in Central Florida, in the county, Orange County, Florida. And so I was pretty much of the, like, the very few people of color on this council. And
Oh,
the first day, I was just listening to what was going on and learning. And by the second meeting, the following month, I came back armed with the right questions, right? And so
love that.
I
Love
did
that.
my research, and and I came in and I said, okay, so you mean to tell me that there's millions of dollars dispersed to arts and culture groups here in our county, and out of the 30 organizations that receive funding from the local county, not one is Latino, and 30% of the population in Orange County is Latino.
That's horrendous.
So there I say, it's a rhetorical question. We don't need to answer it now, but what's going on? Okay. And so
Uh,
then I started asking about how are you disseminating that this is available? Because I consider myself a leader in my community. And this is the first time I hear about it. And it's because I'm sitting at this table. So how? And so then it goes to communication, representation, dissemination of information, all of these things that you're mentioning at the national level. It arms you. But I knew what to ask because I've been following you guys, right? So
love that. I love that. You're using your voice exactly how we want you to use it. And you know what? I got to tell you, Sammy, I am sure that when they actually incorporated Latino organizations to that, their impact on art overall grew. This is the thing. We're giving them growth. This is not charity. They're not having less or they're not making us a favor. We're driving the growth. If you don't arm those kids with arts and budget to create that art, you're missing the boat and somebody else will. So you
yeah.
actually are making them a favor. And I think that's the most important angle of all this data.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was there like a thorn on their ass, and they changed some of the policies, and now there are Latino organizations receiving
I
funding from
love
that fund.
that. I
Pero
love that.
3 años, it took 3 years though, but it got done, right? You know, government's kind of slow sometimes, so but
Perfect case study, though. Perfect case study. That's
yeah.
exactly.
So listen, Anna, this was great. I feel like I can ask you a gazillion questions, and I just want to be mindful of your time. You've been so generous, and
Of
I'm
course. Thank
excited. I'm
you.
excited to see the new reports and to have you again as a guest if you'll come and honor us with your participation.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I love how you are really one of the an amazing ambassador for everything that we do. Please tell your audience to go to our website and download this information. It's free. It's easy to download. We actually have some infographics that that you don't have to read the whole report. You can see the most important points on it. And thank you for having me. It's been really an honor.
The honor's all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jimen Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU.